Hi guys, as music producers, we live in an incredible time right now because there are so many free resources out there for us to take advantage of. And today we're talking about free VST effects plugins. As we all know, there are a ton of free effects plugins out there, but we're just going to focus on three criteria. The first criteria is that it has to be easy to use, meaning that it has a shallow learning curve. You have to watch a bunch of tutorials in order to find it useful. Can you use it on any DAW, any system? Is the install process a pain? And secondly, it has to be actually useful. We're talking about the ones that can do things that your stock plugins in your DAW can't, or do them better. We just want to find out if these are actually useful and they won't just sit in a folder somewhere gathering dust. And lastly, it's obviously got to be completely free for at least the main functionality of the plugin. And by the way, we're not talking about VST synths or any sort of instruments or sample libraries here, just effects. So starting off, we've got Magic Switch by Baby Audio. Now this plugin is a chorus effect that is roughly modeled after the chorus from the legendary Juno 60 synth, which is just magic. What I like about it is that it's so easy to use. You just drag one slider over and it sounds fantastic. Also, it's really easy to download. You just trade your email address for a download link, which I really can't emphasize how much I appreciate. I love adding this to just like a simple sound that has some chords going. Now as a bonus, and you know I love bonuses, I want to mention Magic Dice by Baby Audio as well, which is a plugin that creates these randomized wet textures from whatever you put the plugin on. And all you have to do to activate it is throw the dice. It's also a great snag and something that I would recommend. Next up is Supermassive by Valhalla. Supermassive is a unique combo of reverb and delay. This thing adds a unique flavor because of this combo, and it makes it easy to sort of spice things up. My favorite way to use it is to add more interesting sounds into the mix. Like you can take a boring C major chord and throw this on there and it just sort of comes alive. If you want to take this a step further and you're the kind of person who likes to get real weird with your sound effects and soundscapes, Valhalla's Space Modulator and Freak Echo, pun intended, are great free pickups, and you might as well. Loudness Meter by Lean. I know, this one's not as exciting as some crazy effect, but stay with me because of how useful this is. I put it on nearly every track that I make at some point. Loudness Meter, well, measures the perceived loudness of your mix or master, which is crucial because in the music world, different platforms have different requirements to avoid distortion. And most of the plugins that do this well can be on the expensive side. If you're someone who likes to master your own music, Spotify, for example, has a recommended LUFS or LUFS value of -14 decibels and a true peak value of -1 decibel to avoid distortion in the transcoding process. So you can monitor those levels and requirements nicely with a plugin such as Loudness Meter. Plus, I think it looks quite nice. Next up, we've got Paulstretch by Paul Naska, which is one of my all-time favorites. Paulstretch is an open source plugin that can stretch audio to the extreme, like up to 10 quintillion times the original size of the audio. If you guys saw my video on how to make dreamy pads, you know that I love to use this plugin for that very purpose. And if you can get past the old school design, this thing is as powerful as it is unique. I love using this plugin. So here's why this thing is a beast. Select. You can already hear it getting to work here. And honestly, you just go through and explore. So I'm just moving like the stretch amount. I'm changing the FFT size, which is basically the size of the grains. And you can get some really cool textures. Listen to the texture that I was able to get just out of this single piano. Nova Dynamic EQ by Tokyo Dawn Records. Sometimes you want to control frequencies without removing them altogether, which is where dynamic EQ comes in handy. And essentially, we get to balance removal with control. Now, when you have a band of frequencies that you don't like in a given scenario, what you can do is set the threshold, and when the audio in that band goes above the threshold, it begins to reduce the level of that band. So you can control the frequencies only when they occur and not when they don't occur. This plugin is super versatile, but I think it excels at reducing just the general unpleasantness of certain things. Like for example, around 2 to 4K in an electric guitar recording can be super grating to listen to, but you also need 2 to 4K for the definition and clarity of the guitar part. So watch what happens when I use it to control that range without making it seem lifeless. Tape Cassette 2. This is a plugin that emulates the character of old cassettes, and you can get some really like cozy lo-fi sounds out of it, and I think everyone should have at least one plugin that can do that. I like using this plugin because it's really easy to dial in, and you can get as subtle or as extreme as you like. iZotope's vinyl is also really good, but I find that the pitch warping is just a little bit too subtle for me, even at the maximum value. I do really like the different eras of vinyl simulation though. I think that's awesome. Obviously, there are no rules about what you can and can't put on this, but I find that it's really nice to put on chordal instruments. You know, you throw this on like a piano and just Fresh Air by Slate. Fresh Air is a free plugin from Slate that adds high frequency harmonics to whatever you put it on, similar to how an exciter works. It doesn't sound distorted though, which is part of the beauty of the whole thing. I love this plugin. It sounds great and it's really simple. It only has 2 knobs. Whenever something seems sort of dull and lifeless, you just throw this on there and it just like breathes new life into it and adds this crispness to it. It's amazing. And remember, this is different than EQ because it's adding harmonics that weren't there before, as opposed to raising harmonics that may not be there already. My absolute favorite way to use this is on a drums bus. Sometimes they just need a little sparkle, and this is just the ticket. Now there's one small downside to the plugin, that's that you need an iLok account, not the dongle, to download and activate the plugin, but to me it is worth the trouble and then some. Next up, we've got Saturation Knob by Softtube. Now obviously this is a saturation plugin, so we're still talking about harmonics, but this time the added harmonics aren't just limited to upper frequencies. There's even a switch that you can toggle to craft where in the frequency spectrum you want the added harmonics to be. I love the simplicity of the plugin. It sounds really natural, but also really gritty depending on what your preferences are. Seriously, download this plugin and then put it on top of your drums bus or your vocals, or my personal favorite, your bass. I'm a real sucker for saturation to help things stand out in the mix, especially bass. And finally, we've arrived at the free effects bundle from Melda Productions. This bundle right here, everybody should pick up. I mean, it's a big set of various audio effects that nicely fill in the gaps of what effects you don't already have. For me, for a long time, I did not have auto-tune, but I did have this bundle from Melda, which means that I had access to auto pitch, which works great. So you can make your vocals sound like this. Wow. Some personal favorites of mine though are the frequency shifter, the notepad, and of course, auto pitch, but there's a whole bunch that you can choose from in this bundle. It's crazy. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is worth picking up. I've been using it for years and it's kind of mind-blowing that it's free. So guys, what's your favorite free VST effect that you use all the time? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Have fun making music.